Good morning. Today is June 15th, 2023. It's approximately 9:30 a.m. This is the matter of two applications for land conditional use permits, files Z0113-23C and file Z0114-23C, having to do with applications for permits for mining activities submitted by on behalf of Eagle Creek Rock Products. My name is Carl Cox. I'm a private attorney appointed by Clackamas County Board of Commissioners as Land Use Hearings Officer with authority to conduct this hearing and make a determination in this matter. I have several items to add to the record. First, this hearing is being recorded. That recording is available through the county. This is a quasi-judicial land use hearing, which means two important things for those participating in this hearing. First, all of the criteria that can be used in reaching a decision have been identified in the staff report. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards the criteria identified in the staff report or other relevant criteria found in the comprehensive plan or other land use regulation that the person believes applies to the decision. Accordingly, please direct your testimony to a relevant approval criterion. Second, failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude appeal to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Once final, this decision may be appealed to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals. Further, I've considered issues of bias and conflict of interest, and I've determined that I do not have any bias or conflict of interest in this matter. Further, I've not received any ex parte contact, meaning no one contacted me outside of these proceedings to try to persuade me concerning a fact or issue present in this matter. I will note that I have had an opportunity to review the county staff report and some of the exhibits, though at least those exhibits that were posted as of yesterday to the county's website with respect to this hearing. Prior to the end of the close of this record, I will, or prior to the end of the close of this hearing, I will provide an opportunity for participants and members of the audience to make a request to keep the record open to provide additional evidence, arguments, or testimony. I will make that, I'll make that statement to that effect as we proceed further along. Are there any questions before I begin? I'm going to ask that the county provide an explanation concerning participation in this hearing via the Zoom platform, and then I will ask that the county begin the hearing by presenting evidence the county wants me to consider. I understand there's a staff report with a PowerPoint, and we'll start with that. I'll then provide the applicant an opportunity as well, and members of the general public who have appeared and want to provide testimony or comments. Please proceed with the explanation of the Zoom hearing.
Sounds good. Thank you. My name is Joy Fields. I am the planner assigned to the applications, and this public hearing will be conducted using the virtual Zoom platform. Panelists for today's hearing include the hearings officer, county staff, and the applicant, as well as property owner representatives. All have both audio and video capability. Audience members have joined the meeting and will have their mics muted unless they wish to testify, in which case they will be called upon to do so by county staff moderator. Audience members' videos will not be turned on at any time. Today's hearing is being recorded as required by law. The county will make every effort to post the recording to the county website later today. There is a designated time during the hearing when it will be open for testimony. The hearings officer will make it clear when this is. If you want to provide testimony, you will utilize the raise hand feature. If you have the raise hand button on PC or iPad, it's usually at the top or the bottom of your device, depending on the device you are using. When the moderator switches you over to provide testimony, your screen will look different for a little while. Primarily, you will see all the participants' cameras, not just the one who is speaking. Staff will call upon you when it is time for you to provide testimony. Be sure to provide your name and mailing address when you begin your testimony. Once you have provided your testimony, your mic will be muted and your screen will be returned to normal. If the record is left open at the end of this hearing and you wish to submit additional written testimony, email written testimony to myself, Joy Fields. My email is jfields@clackamas.us. It is also provided at the end of the PowerPoint presentation I will be giving. You may also mail additional testimony to Clackamas County Planning and Zoning Division, located at 150 Beaver Creek Road, Oregon City, Oregon, 97045. The staff contact email address, as I mentioned, will be available and on the webpage where you found the Zoom link to attend today's meeting. The staff contact will also be there. Testimony will be received by 4 p.m. on the date that the record closes. People who testify and provide their mailing address will receive a copy of the hearings officer written decision. If you do not wish to testify but would like to receive the decision, you must provide your email or standard mailing address by emailing the staff contact for the application or by entering it in the Zoom chat function during the hearing. With that, I will begin the PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you.
Today's hearing is a joint hearing for Z0113-23-C and Z0114-23-C. The reason it is a joint hearing is because the proposal is very similar and will be an expansion of the existing mining operation located at the end of South Talons Road. However, because these applications are for different properties, you will find that there are 2 different staff reports that address potential recommended conditions of approval. And you will notice throughout the presentation that you will see different site plans that are identified for each separate application. Z0113-23 is a conditional use application for mining for the property located at the end of South Talons Road. The applicant is proposing to extract aggregate from the subject property and transport it to the adjacent property to the north, where Eagle Rock Products will provide processing at the existing mining operation. Z0114-23 is also a conditional use application for mining, for surface mining specifically, and the applicant is proposing to extract aggregate from the subject property and transport it through internal roads to the adjacent property to the east, where Eagle Creek Rock Products will provide processing at the existing mining operation. No truck access is proposed for the mining site that is involved in Z0114-23 along Southeast Frog Pond Lane. So there is no traffic associated with this land use application proposed along Southeast Frog Pond Lane. As I mentioned, the existing facility is located at the terminus of South Talons Road. It appears that the applicant or the ownership of the existing mining operation is a combination of own land for 144 acres and just additional properties that are either owned or leased by other entities that make the total acreage for the ownership over 160 acres. Aerial images as well as records indicate that there is a residence located on the parcel that is involved with Z0114-23 that is adjacent to Frog Pond Lane. This site for both applications is in the area south of Oregon City and west of Highway 224, and is in a mixed use area. There's farming activities, there's residential home sites, it's rural, there's forested areas to the north of the mining operation, and the zoning designation is Rural Residential Farm and Forest, abbreviated as RRFF5. This is an area map showing the location. The yellow area on the right is the property on Frog Pond Lane for Z0114-23. And the area I messed up my directions, I apologize. The area to the left is for along Frog Pond Lane for Z0114-23, and the area to the right is the property at the end of Southeast Talons Road, Z0113-23. From an aerial image, you can see the existing mining operation that is between the two subject sites at the end of Southeast Talons Road. The site plan provided by the applicant for Z0113 shows the aerial image in relation to the tax lots in a very clear way. I appreciated the clarity provided. It also identifies some of the items that will be discussed, including that they are proposing to vacate the public right-of-way at the end of South Talons Road, so that this area along the edge of tax lot 3500 and 3400 can be included in the mining operation. Currently, it's my understanding that no one uses this public access, and that the mining operation is at the end of road, and this right-of-way does not connect it with connect the subject site with any other properties. There are conditions of approval recommended related to the vacation of the road, both for land use planning as well as transportation and engineering. The Transportation and Engineering Division included comments that if the road is to be vacated, a turnaround at the end of South Talons Road would need to be created that met the engineering roadway standard designs. Along South Frog Pond Lane, you'll see that the road is to the west of the site, while the existing mining operation is to the northeast. In the aerial image provided by the applicant, the residents to the south and to the north are clearly visible. And you'll notice that they're in addition to the earthen berm that the applicant is proposing as a barrier to noise and visual barrier to the adjacent residential homes, there are existing screening provided by the existing trees that are along the edges of the properties. Sorry. Here is a tax map for Z0114-23, and it shows the property in relation to surrounding properties. that are all zoned rural residential farm and forest, residential zoning district. One of the items that I want to note with this site plan that is provided by the applicant is that there is topography shown on tax lot 2800 that matches the vegetation shown on aerial images that indicates that there might be a creek located in that southern area of the property. And I say that because the statewide wetlands inventory indicates that there is a tributary to Curran Creek that comes off of Curran Creek near the bend of Southeast Frog Pond Lane. And so there is a condition of approval recommended by staff that a wetland delineation determine whether this topography and vegetation indicated at the southern end of tax lot 2800 is in fact wetland, or if it's riverine creek. And in either case, it is recommended that there be a buffer around this to protect the natural resource feature and potentially downstream neighbors that would be impacted if this is in fact a waterway that connects to Curran Creek. We want to ensure that there's no pollution or impacts from the mining downstream of the property site. On Z0113-23, here is the tax map that shows it located to the west of Oregon State Highway. And it also shows the abandoned railroad right-of-way, which is where the right-of-way for South Talons Road ends, at that edge of the abandoned railroad right-of-way. The site plan provided by the applicant for tax lot 3500 and 3400 that are involved in Z0113-23 shows an earthen berm on both the southern and the eastern property boundaries. They do not propose an earthen berm along the right-of-way because they're proposing for that right-of-way to be vacated. As a land use application, there are many sections of the zoning development ordinance that are applicable to this application or both applications. One is the conditional use criteria located in section 1203. The other is the rural residential farm and forest criteria that is applicable to the underlying zoning district. Because this proposal for both land use applications is surface mining, section 818 applies. There are criteria in section 1005 that address sustainable site development, specifically identified by staff. Lighting could be an impact if there was any lighting proposed on the site. And so that is addressed, the criteria under 1005 specifically for outdoor lighting is addressed in the staff report. Section 1006 involves water, sanitary, sewer, and surface water. Water in that location is provided by wells. There is no sanitary sewer. The adjacent properties are serviced by septic and wastewater, on-site wastewater structures. Surface water management is conducted by the Transportation and Engineering Division for that location. There is not a surface water management district, and Ken Kent provided comments related to the surface water management. and address the internal roads as well as the South Talons Road in conjunction with the surface water management. The applicant provided a traffic impact analysis for Southeast or South Talons Road, and as well as adjacent intersections. And in the proposal, the applicant indicated that there was not going to be an increase to the number of employees or trucks visiting the site, that the traffic impact analysis was using existing employees and existing truck traffic, and the transportation analysis indicated that that was due to the fact that these proposed expansion areas would be utilized once the mining at the current site commences, and so that there wouldn't be a need for additional trucks. I would like the applicant to verify that during their presentation, just to make sure that we have the same understanding as the traffic impact analysis. Section 1010 applies to signs. They are not proposing they did not include sign designs or any indication that signs would be part of this application. But if there was an offsite sign in the future, a sign application would be needed. Staff are recommending a couple of small signs that would be exempt from section 1010 in response to comments received by the neighbor to the south, RAP, that include hours of operation and a no idle zone on South Talons Road to reduce the noise that is coming from the existing truck traffic, so that the expansion and the continued truck traffic has less impact for the surrounding neighborhoods. Parking and loading. This proposal did not include any additional buildings. And based on the traffic impact, staff did not see any additional parking and loading. However, because it is expanded development, the Transportation and Engineering Division provided comments related to on-site circulation. And so working through a development permit with the Transportation and Engineering Division will ensure that any parking and loading, as well as surface water management, would meet the current standards in the code. Because the number of employees is not anticipated to increase and there are no buildings, staff did not find that trash or recycling was a concern for this application. As I mentioned, this is a conditional use application. Subsection 1203 requires that the use is listed and is allowed as a conditional use in the underlying zoning district. That is the case in the rural residential farm and forest. Table 316-1 identifies the following as an allowed use, and that is operations conducted for the exploration, mining, or processing of geothermal resources or other subsurface resources as a conditional use. This proposal involves surface mining. Section 1203-03 looks at the characteristics of the site to determine if the characteristics of the site are suitable for the proposed use, including the size, shape, location, topography, and existence of improvements and natural features. This is the section that involves the recommendation to have the wetland delineation. For tax lot 2800 that is involved in Z0114-23, because we want to ensure that the natural features on that site are considered and protected from the proposed operation. In general, the sites are large and connected to the existing mining operation. There was no issue with the size or the shape of the sites with their proposed use. There was not steep topography to be of concern for adjacent properties or for the proposed use. And the existence of South Talons Road provides access, and with the conditions of approval provided by the Transportation and Engineering Division that include improving South Talons Road for this development, the existing improvements and improvements to the roads would be sufficient for the use. As I mentioned, the application included a traffic analysis to address subsection 1007, and staff found no concern for the sufficiency of the road or the safety of the transportation system regarding this proposal. 120303, the proposed use will not alter the character of the surrounding area in a manner that substantially limits, impairs, or precludes the use of the surrounding properties for the primary uses allowed in the zoning district in which the surrounding properties are located. The surrounding properties are rural residential farm and forest to the south and the west of both locations. And they are timber to the north of the site for Z0113-23. And it is not anticipated that the surface mining will substantially limit the use for the surrounding properties for residential use because of the existence of the mining operation already in that area, as well as the earthen berms and landscaping screening that the applicant is providing. Additional impacts that staff anticipate being addressed in both the applications for DOGAMI and DEQ would be groundwater. Because the surface mining is going below the static groundwater level, staff would assume that the state agencies that are also regulating mining would address groundwater management during the process. That is not something specifically identified in the ZDO, but it is an impact that could impair wells or stream recharge or other aspects of the surrounding area. And like I say, I anticipate that the state permits will address groundwater, but I would want to make sure, especially based on comments received from the property to the north with concerns about their well water, that groundwater be looked at. The proposal is in line with the Clackamas County Comprehensive Plan, the land use, the transportation, and the public facilities. Mining is identified as a Goal 5 resource, and it is in the comprehensive plan, as well as residential and farm and forest uses. And so the applicant provided evidence that it satisfied the goal and policies of the comprehensive plan. Staff reviewed the section 800 and section 1000s. We have discussed many of those already during this presentation. If there are any specific questions about specific sections, or if there's testimony related to any of the sections, I'm happy to provide additional information if I can. So the recommendation is that for Z0114, we have a discussion about the waterways and groundwater, as well as the impact along South Talons Road. If these potential impacts can be adequately mitigated as required through section 1203, staff would recommend approval of this application to conduct surface mining on the subject property located at 25528 Southeast Frog Pond Lane. Z0113-23 is the vacant property to the east, and the adjacent neighbor to the south had concerns about the traffic along South Talons Road and noise. And so discussion and consideration of noise and traffic and condition of South Talons Road is warranted. And if found that these and other potential impacts can be adequately mitigated, staff would recommend approval of this application to conduct surface mining on the subject property located at 25620 Southeast Talons Road. Do you have any questions for me at this time?
I wanted to just recap. So the turnaround, is that actually shown on the site plan? Yes, no?
The turnaround is not shown on the site plan. It is included in Exhibit 5, which is the engineering comments that have been added to the file that will be uploaded later today.
Okay, Exhibit 5 is coming.
Yes.
I would like to ask this of the applicant. So this turnaround, I haven't seen this exhibit. I'm not sure if you've had an opportunity, and perhaps you need to unmute Mr. Sandblast. You're muted. But what we're talking about, my understanding is when you vacate the end of that road, essentially what I would expect is some indication this is a dead-end road, some opportunity for people to have a place to turn around. Is that your understanding as well?
Yes, and that's given that we've got exhibit, I think it was Exhibit 5 that Joy just said, the answer is yeah, we understand that. We can provide that.
Okay. I want to make sure that you saw that, because I'm going to be asking, at least when we talk, whether you had an opportunity to review all of the proposed conditions of approval and if there's anything specific that you disagree with. And I just find it hard to answer that question if you didn't have a look.
Yeah.
So there will be no additional trucks with respect to either of these applications.
No, the same amount of traffic, and that just to confirm, I think Joy raised that during the staff report that that is what the application says, and that is what will occur. That's what's proposed.
I heard her say that she wanted confirmation, so my question was literally to answer her question.
Yeah,
and the small exempt signs being proposed, concerning no idling and hours of operation, this is also agreeable?
it is.
All right, and I think it has to do with the public comment submitted by a neighbor about trucks showing up early and idling, and I think we're all familiar with what that sounds like if it's
no question. And that we talked about that, Stacy and Travis and I have talked about it since we saw those comments, and there's no issue with having a no idling zone and putting a sign there.
Perfect. So at this, did I miss any questions that you wanted to address with respect to the staff report?
No, I thought Joy did a great job. It's a very thorough staff report, and this is a unique situation, just given the fact that this is really truly just surface mining. It isn't a full-blown operation, so it's very limited in its scope. And so, yeah, I thought she did a solid job and I don't really have any questions about it. She noted the wetlands, and our initial kind of assessment of that was it wasn't really anything there. And that's why we showed it as being on the mining plan, but we understand the condition of approval. So we'll assess that accordingly as we move forward. And we fully acknowledge that we need to go to Dogami, again, to Joy's point about we will be down at Dogami for several months, going through the process with them because they have on-site requirements for mining operations. This particular operation is kind of a grandfathered operation at Dogami. And so there's unique situations with all of that, but they will fully review everything. We've already had one pre-design meeting with them. So we will be working with them, and there's a condition of approval that says to comply with Dogami, and we accept that.
Is there something further the applicant wants to add for me to consider?
Stacy and Travis may have something to say.
Well, we just wanted to, can you hear us okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Me and Travis just wanted to thank everybody for the considering our application. We're the third generation in Clackamas County mining sand and gravel. Our grandfather, and then our father, and then me and Travis picked up this little small site. So we appreciate that.
Nice to meet you.
Some of the sites have turned into some of the most beautiful Street of Dreams to some of the most greatest preservative wetlands, some of the mines. So when these sites are treated correctly, they can turn out a great ending. When it comes to the traffic, she asked me if how are we're just happy with the amount of business for the size of the site that can only handle so much of a truckload. You can only handle so much processing. We feel, me and Travis, feel with the current growth that we are just maxed out. This is a pretty small site. We're happy with where we're going.
Okay. So you're affirming then no additional trucks or traffic. It's going to be the same operation expanded onto these two adjacent parcels with internal roads to transport the materials.
Exactly.
And, but as far as the rest of the neighborhood, it's going to largely appear as business as usual.
Correct.
Okay, except for the signs are going up to about the idling.
Yeah, so we'll get rid of the idling and no truck parking in front of the gate.
Okay.
I will take the opportunity to just add, just again, to kind of confirm and reaffirm, I guess, what's in the record. And that is no access onto Frog Pond Lane. I saw that in Ken Kent's report this morning, Exhibit 5. And Talons Road is the primary access. And then also just acknowledge the public comments, right? We saw the comments from the person that adjacent to the south, kind of southeast on Talons. And I think Joy spoke to that. And then we saw the one that came in this morning, or we got this morning to the north. We saw those comments, and the groundwater that was raised by Joy indeed will be addressed by Dogami. So that's part of the Dogami permit process. And again, there's a condition of approval for that. So Travis and Stacy may just briefly for the hearings officer's benefit and for the record, I guess, what you have been doing with Talons Road, because the public comment that came from the person that had pictures with potholes and whatnot, maybe you could just give a response to what you've been doing on that point to date.
Sure. From the point that we, took over the operation about 4.5 years ago, the road was being maintained by most of the neighbors. And so we've taken and maintained the road 100% from then. I have seen a couple of neighbors out there, helping along with the road, but we 90%, 95% take care of the road. Keep it mowed on the berms, keep it graveled, keep it watered. We really take care of the road, and we will continue to work with the neighbors as the road needs improvements. We will keep working with our neighbors.
We do.
Go ahead, Travis.
And there is some potholes that do come up, but we do have rain too, and we can't just get to it right away. So, because they get a little bigger and they just blow back out if I put rock on top of them. So
we
there
did-
is potholes in the road. They're not gonna say there's never not been perfect. So,
Sure. And I saw the comment about looked like there was a bridge over a culvert that cracked or broke and you replaced it. That's what happened there.
We
No.
just did some repairs to it. The culvert, it had a basically rotted out. So we took a steel plate down there and a big, like they use on the highways and when they're building.
Transport.
And we went down there and put a 1-inch by 15-foot road construction plate and then buried it
and then we did reinforce it with concrete.
and reinforced it with concrete and fixing the road. Otherwise, they would have done it themselves. So,
Well, and you use it for your own access as well.
yes.
Yes. Okay. And those were the questions that I saw. Is there another comment by the county or by the applicant?
I have
Yes.
one additional question, brought up by Stacy's comment. I was wondering where the water came from when you did spray down the road to reduce dust.
Well, we have the washing ponds that we wash the sand and gravel with here. So we take it out of the ponds that down
Okay.
below that are used for the processing of the sand and gravel.
Okay, thank you.
On site. Those are on-site ponds.
Yes, existing.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Did you have a comment, Mr. Kent, or?
Oh, sorry, go ahead. But they said Ken. There's not usually two Kens.
Looks like a popular enough name today.
Yeah, well, I'll go on mute for that.
I didn't have a specific comment if there are any other questions, but I think they've kind of covered the main issues that I had addressed.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I'd like to provide an opportunity for members of the general public who are present. Please, if you want to make a comment, use the raise hand feature. Or do we have members of the general public?
We do. I have two hands raised. I have first Beverly Rapp, followed by Kenji King.
Let's have Beverly Rapp. Good morning.
Good morning. My first question is concerning the berm on the south border of the proposed property. Right now, there isn't one.
I'm sorry, we need your address.
Oh, thank you.
25650 Southeast Talons Road.
And it was, I received an exhibit 4, and those were written comments provided by you, June 5th. Does that sound familiar?
Yes,
Okay, that's what I assumed. Thank you. Go ahead with your question.
I just am wondering when that's going to happen, because as of right now, there aren't any berms there, and it's quite noisy and dusty and unpleasant to look at.
I'm going to ask Mr. Sandblast if he would like to respond to that question.
Yeah, thank you. The broad brushstroke answer is it'll be several months because, as I said a little bit ago, Dogami's process has to occur now, and that is measured in 4 to 6 months. And then after that, it's subject to Stacy and Travis's operating plans, and so it will be some period of time before that can happen. Stacy, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Sure. The berms, we've actually started the process of building the berms, and we were just waiting on some kind of approval to we're doing improvements to other people's properties, and sometimes they don't want it, and so we're just waiting on this approval or potential approval to keep continuing on forward.
That reminds me, Stacy, thank you. But that reminds me, we talked about the fact that the conditional use permit from the county requires the berm. And so with this approval and the condition on there, of course, Dogami requires it too, but we were going to go ahead and get started, with the understanding that the conditional use approval was would be occurring, even though Dogami wasn't there yet.
So your answer then is shortly subsequent to if the county if I approve your application and it's not appealed, then you would be working to start the process to build the berm,
Particularly on the south side, where
particularly on the south side.
Ms. Rapp is.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Ms. Rapp?
Yes,
Did you have another question?
yes, concerning the bridge, the culvert on the bridge was actually crushed. They did put a steel plate down, but there's no culvert there.
I'm not at all familiar with the issue.
Okay, the bridge on Talons Road, at some point, because of all the heavy trucks using the road, it collapsed where the culvert and the bridge are.
Okay.
They did put a steel plate over, but the culvert was still crushed and has not been replaced.
I don't know anything about this. So no, does it, I don't even know what the requirement here is. I understand there's I call them trench plates, that's those big steel plates, trench plates, but that's what I envision is placed there now. It's not a actual bridge.
Right, it's a plate, steel plate, yes.
Right.
If it's
So-
appropriate, I would add that the conditions of approval include from Development Engineering's memo, condition of approval number 3, which talks about Talons Road from the site down to Folsom and making it a minimum 20-foot width. So I'm assuming that in the process of satisfying that condition, this issue will get looked at because it's part of that section of road. And maybe Kent can speak to that. I'm not sure. I'm not intimately familiar with his memo quite yet.
Oh, the culvert is I'd say 2 36-inch culverts, and they've probably been in there since 19, who knows how long. And this pit's been existed prior to 71. So there's been a lot of traffic over it, and the culvert is an old culvert, and we've been maintaining that section.
But the culvert is really actually not crushed. I can take pictures of it. It's still round.
It's still around. We've been inside it. We've cleaned the brush that flows down. It sometimes can jam up in there. So me and Travis will actually go inside it and inspect it and get the brush for the water can continue flowing through it.
Okay.
So it doesn't continue to run any further.
Yes.
And I can add that I think through that development permit, reviewing the conditions of that roadway, at least the width, we could evaluate whether there's a need for the culvert. I think whether fire access may rely on that too. Typically, we're making sure that the road can support fire trucks. They're obviously supporting gravel trucks as well. So capacity-wise, it would make sense. And Talons Road, in the unique situation, it's not a county maintained road. It's a public right of way, but there is no maintenance by county. So it wouldn't be something that county crews would be dealing with, a culvert or repairs, but then county engineering would deal with any permitting or need for replacement. And so that can be evaluated through the development permit and verified.
I would very much appreciate that. I would very much appreciate that. Because if something happens there, we are stranded.
I read that in your comment and wanted to make sure that we addressed that this morning. So what I hear is that part of the conditions of approval submitted as recommendations by County Development Engineering has to do with the development permit to widen that road to the 20-foot standard. And also, I believe there's a that when that evaluation occurs, that culvert will need to be looked at and possibly improved or repaired or somehow re-engineered and supported. Okay, is that fair? All right. do we have another comment? Kenji King. Okay. Please
Hello.
state your name and address.
My name's Kenji King. My address is 25360 Southeast Frog Pond Lane. And I also own the property right next door, which is 25460 Southeast Frog Pond Lane, which is directly north of the proposed site Z0114-23.
Good morning. Nice to meet you, sir.
Good morning. You guys hear me well enough?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. Joy, I appreciate you processing my email in such a late fashion. Been a long week. We had a death in the family, and a lot of things I meant to do 2 weeks ago got pushed back. So thank you for that. Yeah, my concerns are the gravel pit has been willing to work with us and been, decent neighbors. But this site will be much closer to, and I mean, if you can look on the map, if you guys have it available, the 25460 property, it will, the property lines go right up to the back of the shop that we have on that property, the house and shop there. So my concern, and I don't even know, forgive my ignorance of the process here, but so that property is a manufactured home. It's a rental for us. The plan was to build a home on that later and sell that as part of our retirement. And then my home is north of that, directly north, and kind of the same thing. It's as Terry and Stacy know, for us, we have a kind of 8-year, 5-year, 8-year, 10-year plan. And so the effect of our home values with a active mine site, that can be, some say, oh, it's not a big deal and it's fine, blah, blah, blah. But I've been watching property values in this state and in other states adjacent to gravel pits, and it's very evident that you can, different realtors say different things, but it's a substantial amount, and it's tangible because of the noise and the dust, and it's just, no one wants to be there with the uncertainty of how long and how large the project will be. And also have a concern for the 25460 property. The well for that property during the summer months, as the aquifer gets drawn down, the water quality goes down. It has kind of a sulfur smell and whatnot. And so I guess that will be looked at more, but that's definitely a concern for us. If that well were to go dry, what is left for us to do other than too bad, so sad. So I don't know if there's any consideration for that, but I know for approval, the aquifers will be looked at, but I want to make that stated in this process. And then and then as far as putting a berm up or, those things, the tangible improvement from that is negligible. But, and the bridge and the creek for Frog Pond Lane. So that bridge is right at the south end of the proposed property for the Z0114-23. There is a creek there that goes under it's Curran Creek. It's also the same creek that flows through the culvert on Talons Road. So that flows through the properties in between and then goes down to Eagle Creek. So it is a full-fledged creek, I would say. My children go down there. My boys have caught crawdads in that creek, and little fish for what they say. I'm not really sure what, but anyway. So yes, I just want the impact of what this property or this mine will do. I don't know if there's any recourse for myself. If I were to keep the properties, I mean, if the property value drops after this is, if say below market value, 15% or whatever, I mean, I'm just forced to keep it as a rental. The manufactured home, they have limited life. And literally the plan was to build a home there and sell it, because the manufactured home after a certain number of decades is just not worth keeping. And so those are my concerns. Beyond that, reclamation and recovery, those are things that, I mean, I honestly believe that I'll never see. So I don't know how much help and those concepts are, for as part of the permit process. But and like I said, I was late to this process, so I definitely am ignorant of how this works, and so I apologize for that. But I just wanted to be able to speak today and enter some sort of testimony.
Well, thank you for your participation, sir, and I'll consider the comments and the concerns you raised.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments? Okay,
I have Teresa Lenchitsky.
please state your name and address.
My address is 25659 Southeast Talons Road, and we are right at the gate to going in. We've been here before the rock quarry started, and shame on us, we didn't do our due diligence and couldn't quite navigate the Clackamas County information about whether or not the rock quarry could continue on. Travis and Stacy have been amazing neighbors, as far as what it entails for living next to a rock quarry. And I understand that they are looking to make a living, and we all are. So that goes without saying. I just want to mention a couple things that bother me. It's certainly the dust. The dust is thick throughout my house and thick throughout my outdoor living space. I know they try really hard to keep it up. The trucks and the employees drive way too fast. We have grandkids, we have pets. And so that's a tad bit frustrating. And looking at, I know that they were talking about the berms, and I think since our portion of land was backed to the existing project, we don't go anywhere near the new stuff necessarily. We do see the trucks, hear the trucks dump, the trucks are dumping and creating a lot of dust that does come onto our property. So if the berm is going to go along there, that would be certainly a bit of a positive for us to block maybe the dust and the view. Like the other neighbor said, it's not super pretty to look at, but I understand Travis and Stacy's, desire to keep going. They'll tell you that I ask them all the time, when are you going to be done? When are you going to be done? And, adding another 5 years to this, like Kenji's comment, is not super exciting for us. So certainly nothing against Travis and Stacy, because they are definitely the best case neighbors that we could have in a situation like this. But there are some serious frustrations living next to it. So I just wanted to be on the record and make my comments, and then, not that there's any recourse whatsoever, but I felt like I needed to be heard.
Thank you for participating in the hearing. Did the applicant have any comment to address her concerns?
Yes, Teresa, our plan is, as we reclaim the property, is real shortly here to berm your side also and work with you on some plants and vegetation and make it more hidden. You've been a wonderful neighbor also, and we appreciate everything that you have to put up with, and you've been just wonderful. So, and we understand that it impacts you, and we work very hard to communicate, and as the property's reclaiming closest to you, that'll be our next ventures to get you more of a berm and some plants and some trees and continue our relationship.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you for the response as well. Do we have another member of the general public that is seeking to participate this morning? That's it. Is there a request? Let me read a statement here before I close the hearing. Does any party or member of the audience want an opportunity to provide additional evidence, arguments, or testimony? Does the applicant wish to waive the period for final written argument? So what I'm asking is, first, is there any party or member of the audience who wants an opportunity to submit any additional evidence that wasn't submitted this morning, or written arguments or kind of testimony with respect to this application? If so, they may request that the record stay open for an additional 7-day period to submit that. Mr. Emmert.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes, I'd like to make a few comments, as I've known Stacy and Travis for over 50 years and worked with them, and actually had property adjoining a former pit that their family had. And I found them to be great neighbors. And that's why I'm always willing to work with them, because as we all know, we have a shortage of gravel that we can legally mine, and is for the benefit of the community. And I recognize the concerns that Kenji and the other neighbors would have, but I've always found Stacy and Travis to do it to the utmost of their ability. And I have great confidence and trust in their follow through. And that's why I'm willing to participate in doing what we can and work with the neighbors and make sure everything's for the benefit of the community the best we can. It's just like transportation. Nobody wants a freeway next to their home, but you got to have a freeway. We got to have gravel. It's part of the community. And if anybody has any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them, sir.
Mr. Emmert, I didn't get you to state your name and address for the record to get a copy of the hearing.
Absolutely. It's Terry Emmert. The mailing address is 11811 Southeast Highway 212, Clackamas, Oregon.
Thank you, sir. And I'll consider your statement of support for these two applications as well.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so my question is, does anyone have a request for me to keep the record open for an additional period?
The applicant does not.
Okay. Then does the applicant wish to waive the period for final written argument?
Yes.
Then the record will close at 4 p.m. today. I expect that I will have exhibits 5 and 6 before that time. Is that an adequate time, Ms. Fields? Okay. And that's all is there an additional exhibit, or did I get that right? 5, 6, or is there 7?
You mentioned the PowerPoint presentation from today would be an exhibit, and that would be exhibit 7.
Okay, so I'll expect to see exhibits through 7, but the record is open till 4 p.m. today to receive exhibits 5, 6, and 7. I think you may have already put 5 in there, but I haven't seen it. So I don't know. It's that question of whether it's there until it's received. With that, I'll close this hearing and state that it was nice to meet each of you, and I will consider all of the evidence, testimony, and materials submitted, including exhibits 1 through 7, with the record closing at 4 p.m. today. I will issue a written decision following my review of all of this material. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.